G'day guys, what's cracking? It's Ralph Mayhew here. It's freezing, hence the beanie and the hoodie. This is the Z5 II from Nikon, and I'm going to show you how I set mine up and explain the different functions in the menu that you can have. So we're going to jump straight into it now and pause and screenshot and do whatever you need to do throughout the video so you can keep up. I'm not going to wait around. We're just going to, let's get going. Let's start by turning the menu on. The first thing we open up is the photo shooting menu. I'm going to go over to storage folder, and I'm going to change the name of my storage folder to something that resonates with this camera. So in this case, it's Nikon Z5 II. I'm happy with that. Normally I might, if it was my Z8, I might go RMZ8. So we're going to keep that how it is. Then I'm going to go to file name, and I'm going to change this to Nikon Z5. Just makes it easier when I'm dealing with lots of different photographs from different cameras. Role play by slot 2. I'm actually going to use slot 2 as my backup. Image area, I'm going to shoot on full crop, that's FX. Tone mode, I'm sticking mine to standard tones. Image quality, I'm going to go up to RAW. Just see what you've got all the way up there. Yep, I just want a RAW photo of everything. I don't need a JPEG backup for every photograph. RAW recording is high efficiency on. ISO sensitivity settings, that's at 100. I'm happy with that. Auto ISO sensitivity control takes up to a maximum of 6400. That's as high as it goes, which I'm happy with. Minimum shutter speed is auto. That's good, just gives you full range of the camera. White balance, I'm sticking with auto. Set picture control, you change this based on what sort of photography you're doing in and of itself. I usually shoot in auto, and I can change the white balance later on. Manage picture control, that's all good. Color space, RGB, happy. Active delighting. Long exposure noise reduction is off. That means it doesn't process the noise once you take a long exposure photograph. That's sometimes when you take a photo, it says processing, and it processes for the same length of time for the photograph. That's your problem right there. ISO noise reduction is norm. Vignetting control is on normal. Diffraction compensation on. Auto distortion control on. Skin softening off, unless you're going to take some portrait photos, then you put that on. Portrait impression balance off. Photo flicker reduction off. These are really good for when you take a shot and it's banding across the photograph, and so you want to make sure you usually fill around with these two options. You can turn that on, and then you can turn this on, and it means your shutter speed can be incrementally changed very gently rather than through the normal standard shutter speed segments that you work with. Metering, I'm going to show you how we change that later on. Flash mode, not using a flash, so don't need to worry about that. Release mode, we'll change that later on, as with focus mode. AF area mode. Subject detection options, so we go in here, you can have it on auto, which picks up animals or people or whatever, or if you're doing a specific shoot, say on birds or a particular animal or on vehicles or aeroplanes, you can change that, or you can take it off completely. I leave it on auto and have a setting that I'll show you later on that helps us move that. Subject detection area is off, but I'll show you how we change that later on too. Link VR to focus point is on, which applies its vibration reduction to where the focus point is. Auto bracketing off. Multiple exposure off. These are extra functions you can actually use on the camera to achieve certain things in certain shots. So it's good to know that they're there and how to use them, but we're not going to muck about with those changes at all. Let's go down to video. So video, reset video recording menu, we're not going to do that. Storage file, so I'm happy with that. Let's just change that to Z5 II. Then I can touch screen to go OK. Destination, I'm just going to shoot into slot 1. There is slot 1 and slot 2. Video type, again, this changes every single shoot, so you can muck about with that later on. Same with frame size. Image area, make sure that's on full frame, unless of course you want it on crop sensor, which you can shoot on if you have a need for that, or if you have a specific lens that it doesn't auto correct to. ISO sensitivity settings, again the same. Maximum setting is right there. Happy with that. I like to have a maximum setting. I don't have to go up to that maximum setting, but having access to it when I need it is good. I don't shoot in auto. If you shoot in auto, you might want to change the ISO sensitivity settings, because it might increase your ISO when you actually really don't want it increased. So that's a way to do that. White balance, set picture control, manage picture control. We're moving through, so these are very similar to the other ones too, and you can change and put them on or off depending on what your requirements are. And these ones here, from metering, focus mode, area mode, subject selection, I'll show you how to change them in a quick access menu later on. Microphone sensitivity. Sometimes if your microphone's plugged into a camera, it might not work. You might struggle with receptivity, so that's when you go to manual. Otherwise, I'll keep in mind to auto, and you can see how that works. Haha. You can also turn the microphone off if you want. Attenuator, frequency response, wind noise reduction. You can change that, depends how you are using a microphone in this, but you have that option there. Mic jack plug in power, which means the camera powers your mic, should that be something you will need. Headphone volumes, time code, so you can record time codes based on your recording. External recording control through HDMI, etc., etc. All right. Now let's go to custom settings, because this is where it gets fun. So let's go focus. AFC priority selection and AF priority selection means you can either shoot anytime you like when you release the button, or you have to have focus and release, or shoot when it's in focus. So I like to sometimes shoot photos that are out of focus deliberately, and that's when you would put both of these to release. If you want your camera to only work when you're focused and it won't take a photo when you're not focused, then you go to focus right here. I choose release because of the creative options it allows me, and it lets me choose what I do with the camera rather than the camera choosing what the camera does with the camera. Focus tracking with lock on. You can choose the response of that. I usually have it right in the middle. I want to use all my focus points, but you can obviously just choose alternating points. Store points by orientation. This feature lets you choose whether to use the same focus point and autofocus area regardless of the camera's orientation, or lock it to the orientation. I'm happy with mine being off. AF activation is about back button focusing, and so I always choose AF on, which means I can press my shutter button down and it doesn't change the focus. I only control the focus by the back AF-on button. My focus point persistence is on auto. Limit AF area mode selection. You can choose which option you have available to you. I'm going to keep all of mine on, but you might just be sick of scanning through them all. There might be one you never use, or a particular shoot where you want to change that around. Focus point wrap around, I'm going to keep mine on. That means as you move your focus through the left side of the screen, it comes on the right side of the screen, and so on and so forth. Focus point display, I have manual focus mode on, all of these on should I need to use them. The built-in AF assist illuminator is the little green light that's on the front of your camera. When it's dark, it glows and causes your camera to get some focus. I hate it because it always detracts and is just a mess, but that's how you turn that on and off. Focus peaking, I keep mine off generally. It basically shows you what's in focus by a red, yellow, blue, or white overlay. I keep mine off, but I do turn it on for particular shoots when I need it. And then focus point selection speed is normal. Don't mind too fast or too slow. Normal just works for me. All right, we're going to move through these. So I keep that a third, easy exposure compensation off. Matrix mirroring face detection is a really good way to prioritize the exposure applied to faces in a photograph, and so you might want to choose that on depending again on what settings you shoot in. Center weighted area is about how the camera calculates its exposure based on which part of the photograph. I'll just keep mine at standard, and then fine tuning optimal exposure. Exposure compensation icon is not displayed when exposure is altered from the default menu. So shutter release button AEL, that's also how you use back button focusing. So I have mine off. You can actually look, you can have it on for a half press or on for burst mode, so depending on what your preferred way of shooting is, you use that. Self timer is something I'll show you how to use through the info quick menu access button, and then you can have your power off delay. This is the only element I changed on this camera before we started, and I changed the menus to 10 minutes because my recorder turns off if the menu screen turns off, and so I've put it on 10 minutes, but this is the length of time your menu's up when you turn it on. So it's automatic. How long does your playback go for? Photo playback, your menus, your picture review, and your standby timer, which turns the camera off. So you can choose them depending on what your needs are and what the particular predicament is that you are in. CL is continuous low speed mode shooting speed. Now on the Z5 II, we can go up to 7. And I'm going to choose 7. It's just the default that when you go to that, it gives you 7 frames a second. Maximum shots per burst, 200. You can go down from 200, you can't go up. 200 is a lot, so I'm happy with that. I don't think I've ever shot 200. You got pre-release capture options, so you can actually record a photograph before you take a photograph, but you access it by pushing the shutter button halfway. So it's an option if you're waiting for that bird to do the perfect thing and you're not sure, but you don't want to burn through the photos, just hold your shutter button halfway and it'll pre-capture that shot that you may well need. A sync release mode options, I just leave that alone. Exposure delay mode off. Shutter type I keep with A. Extended shutter speeds, I actually turn mine on because that gives me the ability to shoot up to 900 seconds as an option. That's 15 minutes. I just find it really helpful if I'm doing particular long exposure images, and it just sits there as an added bonus. It gives me just more scope to move into longer exposures should I need to. Limited selectable image area, you can change and choose what you like. FX is locked in because we locked it in earlier on, right? But these are options you can go to later on should you need to. File number sequence is on, so basically photo number 1 is number 1 and so on and so forth. I keep that on. One of the things that makes mirrorless cameras brilliant is because you have a real-time view, and this is how you change out of that real-time view, and sometimes you need to do that when using flash photography or a variety of other options. So just knowing that it's there, you keep it on what I've got it on, but knowing that it's there gives you that option to change it later on. Starlight view is for astro, just shows the stars in even brighter highlights. Warm color displays is for astro, so it doesn't blow your eyes out with the bright whites, makes everything kind of red. View all in continuous mode means if you have a burst of photographs, if this is on, you can go back and look at each of them. If it's off, it'll kind of bunch them together as one, and you have to go into that. I just find that helpful. But if you're using heaps of burst and you just want to see the general thumbnail of what you've done, then you probably turn that off. Release timing indicator, mine's type B. Image frame is on. If you were going to turn it off, it would hide the white border around the shooting displays in the monitor and viewfinder. I'm going to keep mine on for now. A grid type you can choose is 3x3. There's a virtual horizon type. You can choose this or this. So I prefer this, and I just look past it. Some people can't handle that, and so this is the way to go. Got a friend that's a Canon shooting, he chooses type B all the time. Confuses me when I use his camera though. If you have half press to cancel zoom on, it means what you're viewing through the lens when it's zoomed in during manual focus, then the zoom can be cancelled by pressing the shutter release button halfway. So again, it's a specialized type of setting for a specialized type of photography. Custom monitor shooting display, and you can choose what goes on when you look through your menu on the back. So I have all of that on, but I use the little display button to circle through that, and you can do the same with your viewfinder. Obviously there's less space in the viewfinder, so there's less options, but not too many less options. Flash sync speed 1/200 is good. When you use a flash, all these things are just, when I put a flash on, I'll sometimes alter them, but unless you've got a flash attached to the top of the camera, it's probably really not worth worrying about any of that for the time being. Now, here's the good stuff. This is where we really make a difference in a camera. So we're going to customize the I menu. The I button sits above the OK button on the back of your camera. So let's go into that now. And I'm just going to set mine up how I like to have it. You can do yours however you like. I like to have control of my release mode, which is whether it's single, it's long continuous, high continuous, or a self timer mode. I find that really, really helpful. Next, because I do some events, I want silent photography on that option. It's always confused me why they never have these in any sort of functionality, like it's not in alphabetical order or anything like that. Next, I want to make sure I can choose between autofocus and manual focus at a whim, and I use that a lot. So that enables me to choose autofocus, manual focus, a few other things which are really good. It's what I need quickly. Then I'm going to go to AF area mode. So that gives me the option to what is my focus mode going to be like on, and do I want to change it to cats or birds or planes or people or whatever that is. Then I'm going to go to matrix metering because I use that a lot. And you remember some of these things in the first menu? We were like, oh, we changed that later on. We changed that later on. Well, this is how we change it later on. So there we go to metering. The final one on the top line, I like to choose for interval timer shooting. Now you can choose yours however you like. I'm just showing you how I do mine. I like to have here our white balance option. Next, I'm going to bracketing. So if I want to bracket something, it's right there. Then I might want a bit of creativity around multiple exposure. So the bottom line I'm using for less important things, but things I might access on a fairly frequent basis. Now, full confession time. I'm not really going to use multiple exposure a lot, but I can tend to move the bottom line around depending on the needs I have. I want view memory card info on this because sometimes that's helpful to have, just to know which memory card slot you're shooting from. It could actually be advanced by having more information on it, to be honest. And here you can go airplane mode, whatever you like really. I'm going to go power battery information. And then finally, I want some control over the brightness. So sometimes it's really bright outside, you need things super bright. Sometimes you're shooting astro and brightness just burns the back of your eye globes. So you just, if you have instant access to changing that. But again, you can put anything you like on here, and basically the I button gives you instant access to it. So we're going to go menu and done, and we are going to move on. Custom controls for shooting. Now we have these function buttons. This particular function button, what I like to do with this is choose playback. So I can play back my photos as soon as I've taken them, because I don't actually want a photo to pop up every single time I take a photograph. Our second function button, I'm keeping on that. It enables me to really quickly reach down with my right hand, my ring finger on my right hand, and just click that and change the autofocus options and where the focus point is and what shape it has. AF on is AF on. This is for a battery rig. I'm not putting a battery rig on this at that stage. In previous cameras, you don't have a lot of control over that button, but I'm going to choose that button. That enables me just to choose really quickly what sort of burst mode I want, which is handle. For my disp is display. It's very important. I use that all the time. And we can stick with AF lock on this. That enables when you can set your camera to a certain exposure and a certain focus, and then you can move the camera to something else. So it gives you some freedom to do that, and you do that by holding down the joystick button on the back of the camera. Again, you might want to muck about with these and explore these to your heart's content. You can change the OK button to whatever you like. I can have it as a reset. The playback button is, for me, it's playback. Again, the camera grip you can control completely. You see these, look at these buttons. It just goes on and on. The ISO is very important for me to stay there. This is really exciting. On the Z5 II, you can change your exposure compensation to something else. So you might choose to just select from any of these that you want to go with. I'm just going to keep mine how it is, but you might choose to put it on skin softening, for example. If you're doing a lot of portrait photography, I can have this is my 2 scrolls backwards and front. This is where you can change what they each do. Do so at your own peril, but I'm not mucking about with mine, and you can change what happens on your lenses as well. I hope that's been really helpful. Then playback control. So when you're in playback, you have the option to set these up to do whatever you like. And what I like to do is go the OK button, and on that I'm going zoom, and I'm going into 200. And that means when I take a photo and I press the OK button, it zooms right in on the detail of the shot to make sure that it's in focus and it's really, really sharp. So I find that extremely helpful. And I just encourage you to muck about with any of these other options and just use them as you will. But you can just look at that. There's all sorts. You can actually stick it in monochrome. So you can say that button on the front is monochrome. So when I hit that, it goes to monochrome. You just do what you need to do in that space. Now, touch FN is really interesting. When the camera detects the eyes of a human or an animal portrait subject, you can choose the eye used for focus by tapping and touching the FN area in the monitor. So there is that option. Control lock is just a way to prevent accidental changes on your shutter speed, your aperture lock, or your focus point. I don't have them on, and every so often with the shoot I wish I did. That's just the way it rolls, hey. Reverse dial rotation, you can change the direction that the wheels work. Release button to use dial. And there's all sorts of custom settings that you can choose here based on what sort of lenses you put on or what sort of shooting that you do. I'm not going to go into them all because they're all quite specific. And this G1 customized eye menu, we've already done that, but this is for video. So for video, I would change some of these things up. And what I'm going to look for is, so I want video quality with the frame size and frame rate. You can choose what sort of resolution and frame rate you want. So 2160 is 4K, and that's 1080p. And you see the little number in the square is your frame rate. And so you can shoot up to 120 on 1080p or up to 60 on 4K. And then I'm happy with the rest of these. I've got my microphone sensitivity that I can control there. I've got my AF area mode and my subject detection ready to go. And then I have my focus mode. And they're the main things I want on my top line before we drop down to the secondary things that I consider and put on my bottom line. Electronic vibration reduction, that's pretty good. Vibration reduction, that's not bad. Custom controls gives me instant access to that. Probably helpful. Product review mode. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go to a metering option here, airplane mode. I'm going to go to focus peaking, and here for destination, this is access to the menu, right? You're not actually stopping this option, you're just stopping your access to it. We could go wind noise reduction, which is kind of helpful for the video. Might get a monitor viewfinder brightness. I'm happy with those options, but it's really handy because when you go into video mode, or when you click the disp button from photo to video mode and you press your eye, it gives you a bunch of different options that are pertaining to video rather than photography. Custom controls, again, we can change the way our controls work, and so we actually might want to change this to playback. I'm going to change that to playback because I find it really helpful. If these settings are similar on video as they are for me on actual photography, it's intuitive and I just tend to go there. So I'm happy with all these others. Yep, that's good, 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 good. We're all ready to rock. Again, control lock, you can lock off something if you wish to. Limit AF selection area mode, so you can choose which area mode selection options you have available to you. You might just want less because it's just easier. Autofocus speed is how fast or slow, and so depending on what sort of shoot you're doing, you may want it really quick or you may want a slow transition if it's more cinematic. AF tracking sensitivity, again, how quickly is the sensitivity tracking to this. If it's too fast, you might find it moves its autofocus quicker than you actually like. You're like, no, don't be that sensitive. Like, gosh, just pull it back a little bit. So you keep it on 4 and see how you go, see what you like. High res zoom speed, so you can go in and out base faster or slower. And the power zoom button options allow you to use this little button here that you can see to zoom in on something while you're filming. So it's really handy that you can zoom in on something while you're filming and actually, I'm going to turn mine on, and you'll be able to see in detail how clear it is and whether it's captured the thing you actually want to capture in focus or not, which is sometimes a challenge when you're shooting with video of like, oh, I wish I could just zoom in without touching or mucking about with any of the camera settings. That's how you do it. Find ISO control mode, extended shutter speeds, on or off. Keep it on, but I don't think it damages anything. With view assist, when you turn this on, colors in actual recorded footage are unaffected. They're not changed by the camera at all. I'm going to keep it off, whatever. Zebra pattern, you can choose your zebra patterns. That's on the highlights. So the things where they're blown out, go zebra pattern. That's how you know how to correctly expose. You can limit zebra patterns. You can choose your grid type, brightness information display, the histogram right there, so you can choose which one suits you best. I actually would probably choose this one when it comes to video. Half press to cancel zoom, so that's what we did before, so we can choose that or not. I'm going to turn that off actually. Custom monitor shooting display. What options come up when I'm video shooting? Gives those options again in the viewfinder. And then red record frame indicator, which basically gives you a red ring around a red square around your whole screen to say you're recording, and I find that very, very helpful. Playback menu, I would go picture review and I would turn it off, because when you take a photo, if that's on, every time you take a photo it shows you what the photo is, and for me, like, that's I don't want that. I want to take my photos and then go and look at them at a later moment. Auto rotate pictures, that's really helpful. So if you have that off, you have to turn your camera to look at things vertically. I would choose on so it all just stays the same, especially if you've got it on a tripod. And then we go to setup menu, so format memory cards, how you format your cards just by choosing that. Save user settings. If you're ever going to send your camera away or lend your camera, you can save your user settings to your memory card. That can be really, really handy to make sure you have the right settings when you get your camera back. Reset user settings, obviously language, time zone and date, you've got to choose. If there's a red flashing light on your screen, it's because you haven't set time zone and date. Monitor brightness, so Look at it, it's just super bright. Mine's just, I'm going to stay on 0 because it's just good how it is. I can change it with the info button, allowing quick access to those menus. Monitor color balance, I'm happy with mine, but you can change it if you'd like to. Viewfinder brightness is on auto, but again, you can change it if you think, auto is not good, I need some more control over it. This is where you get control. Viewfinder color balance, viewfinder display size, mine's standard, don't like small, bigger the better, thank you very much. Auto rotate info display means that the information on shooting and playback rotates as you rotate your camera, or it stays how it is. So we are going to turn that on. AF fine tuning options I have off. That's fine as is. Distance units in meters, not feet, but you might choose feet. Save focus position. So basically when you turn your camera off, when you turn it back on, it'll be the focus position will be the same. I just have mine reset, but you can choose that. Save zoom position on a PZ lens. That's a power zoom lens, and so this can recall where the zoom was at. Auto temperature cut out. Mine is standard. You can go high, push it to its limits if you need to. Perhaps if you're doing a particular shoot where you just need to get everything out of it, you do that. Clean image sensor. I always have mine on automatic cleaning and cleaning at shutdown. So every time my camera turns off, it does a little buzz across the sensor and cleans it. Image content for me is off. Copyright information, I could change that. Just offers another level of protection if that's helpful for you. Attach copyright information, that's in the metadata, so we might turn that on. So IPC is the context of Nikon referring to its International Press Telecommunications Council standard for metadata, so you can do what you like with that. The connector function, where you plug all sorts of things into your camera, you can have that an automatic switch or just go with headphones. So just choose what you think there, but I would stick with that. Voice memo options, I think you can put a voice memo on different photographs. I've never done that, just sounds too complicated when it comes to editing later on. Camera sounds, you can have beeps on and off, and the volume and the pitch. I keep mine off because otherwise it just drives me and everybody else crazy. Silent mode is so I can shoot in silent mode, but you'll remember that we actually turned on and off silent mode in the info. Quick access menu, touch controls on the screen. I'm actually going to enable them, and you can change them on. And glove mode means you actually increases the sensitivity of the screen. So if you're wearing gloves or anything like that, and lay out off on your fingers, if you put glove mode on, you'll actually have more chance of changing your screen. So good to know. I'm going to keep mine off for the time being because I don't need more sensitivity on my screen. Self-portrait mode is really important. I turn off, which means I can change the settings on my camera when the screen is facing the front. So if I'm vlogging and I want to change the aperture or the shutter button, if it's on, I have to go behind the camera, close the screen, and it gives me access to it. But I actually sometimes want to change the aperture when I'm looking into the lens and I'm looking at me looking into the lens. So it's just a really helpful option. HDMI output resolution is auto. You can change that sort of stuff. I just have it on auto, but if you're using that in a specific way, that's how you change that. And USB connection priority just prioritizes in the camera what function you want when you plug it into a computer. Battery info, really helpful. You can see the age of your battery. So I've got a new battery in there. Its current charge is at 32% and I've taken 26 shots on it. So when it starts to get to 4, you know you're cooked. USB power delivery, you have that on. If it's off, you can't plug a battery into your camera, but if it's on, you can. Energy saving mode, photo mode, you can have that on. I have mine off because I like to control when my camera's on or off. Slot, empty release lock is really important. If you don't have a card in your camera, it means your camera won't shoot, because you don't want to shoot some great photos and realize you were shooting into nothing because it couldn't save them. So you simply go here and you go release locked, and the shutter release button will be disabled until the memory card is inserted. You can save load menu settings. Remember we talked about saving them before. You can reset. And firmware version is where you update your firmware. It's all quite simple, but that's another video at another time. Network menu, as you can see, mine's all off, but I do turn them on from time to time depending on what I want to achieve. And then I have my menu, and I will sometimes add the really essential things that I use all the time, but I don't have quick access to in this space. And you simply do that by adding items and you select from each one which one's the most important to you. Whew! So what do we think? I hope that's been really helpful to you in understanding some of the functionality of the camera and how it might best suit you. So you don't have to set yours up like me. I just show you how I set mine up for ease of use and some of those hidden features that without it can cause a little bit of frustration, but with it you're like, oh yes, the camera does what I hoped it would do. If you've got any questions, perhaps Google? I'm joking. Any questions? Put them down below. Cannot guarantee that I'm going to help. And some of you might be like, you got that function wrong. Possible. Possible. So if that's the case, again, comment down below. But just say, hey mate, I think I reckon this one does this instead of that. Rather than, you're an idiot. Some people come on and they're like, brutal. And you're like, oh man, really? Like, it's just a bit tough, isn't it? Anyway, I'm dawdling, babbling, carrying on. Somebody the other day put a comment that said, what are you effing babbling about? And I'm like, see ya. Just delete, gone. It's like, man, people are rude. They don't need to be rude. Yeah, we're just trying to help each other. So if this video has been helpful, please like it, subscribe to the channel. I'd love for you to join me with extra videos that are coming out. Really impressed so far with the Z5 II, and we'll have a bigger review coming out for those of you that are like, come on, give me the review. It's coming. It's coming. Just haven't done it yet because there's been a lot of other stuff to do. All right, thanks for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next video. Bye. Today we're looking at the Z5 II from Nikon. Wow, the Z5? Some of you are like, it's a Z5, and I'm like, it is, because I'm an Aussie. But it just gets into my psyche to call it Z5. Okay, well, we've wasted that time, haven't we? Maybe this will be an outtake.